The capital verdict, the systematic dismantling of the Adam Schiff. Empire at the start of the morning, 2.3 billion people were watching Adam Schiff livestream his attack on Senator John Kennedy. By the time 90 minutes had passed, only 200,000 remained, and they were witnesses to the total collapse of a political career. From 73 documented lies on national television to 216 leaked classified calls, and from a $5 million Netflix deal to an empty defendant's chair. This is the moment a high-profile California congressman discovered that the man he had dismissed as a Louisiana relic had been preparing for this day for 6 long months. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room was vibrating with the particular energy that always precedes grand political theater. C-SPAN cameras adjusted their lenses as Representative Adam Schiff entered the room with the precision of a Hollywood director blocking a scene. His entourage, 2 cameramen, a sound engineer, and 2 social media specialists, moved in practiced synchronization, setting up high-end equipment with the efficiency of a professional film crew. His communications director whispered that they were going live in 30 seconds while holding up an iPhone 15 Pro Max mounted on a stabilizer. The hashtag Kennedy Exposed had been seeded an hour earlier and was already trending in political circles. Across the room, John Kennedy sat at his designated spot, a rumpled figure in a brown suit that had seen better decades. His reading glasses perched precariously on the end of his nose as he drew what appeared to be small crawfish and pelicans in the margins of a yellow legal pad. To any casual observer, he looked exactly like what Schiff was about to claim: a relic accidentally elected to the Senate, someone more suited to a bait shop than the halls of power. The notification ping echoed through the room as Schiff went live. "Good morning, America," Schiff began, his voice carrying the polished confidence of a man who had rehearsed his lines for days. "Today, you will witness the unmasking of Senator John Kennedy, a man who represents everything wrong with our political system. This Confederate-loving fossil, this foghorn leghorn impersonator who claims to have an Oxford education, which I seriously doubt, sits in judgment of qualified judicial nominees while probably being unable to spell the word Constitution without help. The attack was a precise scalpel designed for viral impact. Schiff accused Kennedy of buying his law degree at a swap meet and his Senate seat with oil money. He called him a fraud, a relic, and an embarrassment to American democracy. Kennedy looked up briefly, blinking owlishly through his spectacles. "My goodness, all this technology," he mumbled to no one in particular. "Back in my day, we just talked to each other." "Exactly my point," Schiff pounced, his eyes bright with the anticipation of a prosecutor who thought he had caught his witness in a blatant lie. "You admit you are behind the times, unable to grasp modern communication. Yet you sit there passing judgment on nominees who will shape America's future. It is pathetic." Kennedy returned to his doodling, adding what looked like a fishing rod to his legal pad. But those who knew him noticed his hand quietly move a thin manila folder from his briefcase to the table. The label, written in careful, old-fashioned cursive, read, "A. Schiff, Public Record." As Chairman Lindsey Graham interjected to signal the end of opening statements, Kennedy set down his pen with deliberate care. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. The absent-minded doodler suddenly focused with laser precision. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," Kennedy began, his voice retaining its molasses-thick drawl but gaining a new, sharper edge. "I want to thank Congressman Schiff for that passionate presentation. I particularly appreciate his emphasis on truth and authenticity. Those are values we should all share. In fact, I've been studying the congressman's commitment to truth, and I have to say, it is mighty interesting. Kennedy opened the folder, revealing papers covered in neat annotations and multicolored highlights. Now, I may be just a simple country lawyer, he continued, but I believe that truth is consistent. It doesn't change based on who you are talking to or what camera is pointed at you. So, I've got a few questions about some public statements. Schiff's smirk remained frozen, even as his lawyer began to whisper urgently in his ear. "I have nothing to hide, Senator," Schiff declared. "Unlike some people in this room, I believe in complete transparency. Ask whatever you want." Kennedy's smile widened just a fraction, the expression of a fisherman who had just felt the first significant tug on his line. Well, now that's wonderful to hear. Transparency, beautiful word. Let's start with something simple then. How many times did you tell the American people you had evidence of Russian collusion? The trap was set. Kennedy lifted the first document with the reverence of a preacher handling scripture. He pointed out that between 2017 and 2019, Schiff had appeared on television 73 times claiming to have more than circumstantial evidence of collusion. A smoking gun. "I said what the evidence showed," Schiff replied confidently, "and I stand by every word." Admirable consistency, Kennedy nodded. But here's what's got me confused. I've got the transcripts from the House Intelligence Committee's closed-door sessions, all 53 of them, declassified in 2020. You were the chairman. You heard every witness. Kennedy put on his readers and began to quote, "Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, under oath. I never saw any direct empirical evidence. CIA Director John Brennan. I don't know if such collusion existed. FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. We have not been able to prove any conspiracy. National Security Advisor Susan Rice. I don't have any evidence of collusion." Kennedy removed his glasses and looked up. "Congressman, I count 53 high-level witnesses. Not one of them testified to having evidence of collusion. Yet you went on TV 73 times saying you'd seen it. Help me square that circle." As Schiff sputtered about classified intelligence and limited testimony, Kennedy pulled out a tablet. "My staff made a little movie. Should we watch?" The screens in the room filled with a montage of Schiff on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and CBS, definitively stating he had evidence. The counter on the screen hit 73. Then came the hammer blow. Kennedy produced an internal email from Schiff's communications director. "Keep pushing the evidence narrative. The boss knows it's thin, but says perception matters more than reality." Schiff's own response was included, "Perfect. If we say it enough, it becomes true. The goal is to keep Trump on defense, not to prove anything." The room erupted. Kennedy didn't stop there. He linked the lies to a motive: profit. He showed that Schiff's speaking fees had jumped from $25,000 in 2016 to $400,000 in 2018. He even produced a contract with CNN guaranteeing Schiff a paid contributor role, $50,000 a month, as long as the Russia story stayed in the headlines. "Story goes away, contract goes away," Kennedy observed. "That's what we call motive, where I come from." The second section of the folder focused on national security leaks. Kennedy produced a chart of 216 instances where a closed-door intelligence briefing was followed within hours by a phone call from Schiff to a reporter, which was then followed by a news story containing classified details. The most dramatic moment of the hearing occurred when Jake Sherman of Politico stood up from the gallery. "Senator Kennedy, I'm Jake Sherman. Congressman Schiff was my source for 17 stories about classified intelligence. I'm willing to testify under oath. I've been carrying this guilt for 2 years." As Schiff collapsed into his chair, Kennedy performed the arithmetic of betrayal. He showed that reporters weren't just getting stories. They were paying for them through Schiff's son's consulting firm. Laundered through speaking fees and consulting contracts, $5,000 to $10,000 per leak was funneled from news organizations' anonymous source funds to the Schiff family. "You turned the Intelligence Committee into a pay-for-play leak factory," Kennedy stated. He read a text from Schiff to a reporter. "Have something big from today's briefing. Usual arrangement. Need to make Alexa's tuition payment." The room went cold. Schiff had sold national secrets to pay for his daughter's college. The human cost was even more devastating. Kennedy read an intelligence assessment detailing how Schiff's leaks had compromised 16 human sources. One source in Syria, Khalil al-Rashid, was identified and executed in a Damascus prison because of a leak to the New York Times. Another cybersecurity specialist, Marina Volkov, was serving 15 years in a Russian penal colony because Schiff's leak to the Washington Post included her operational details. "You didn't just betray abstractions," Kennedy said quietly. "You betrayed people. Americans died because you sold secrets for speaking fees and campaign donations." Then came the revelation of the Netflix deal. Kennedy produced a confidential development contract for a documentary series titled Adam Schiff, Democracy's Defender. The contract, worth $5 million, specifically required Schiff to provide compelling, confrontational footage with political opponents and viral moments. There was even a $100,000 bonus for each clip that trended nationally. "This is your production schedule for today," Kennedy said, holding up a leaked document. 9 a.m., camera setup. 9:15, makeup and wardrobe. 9:30, B-roll of walking into hearing. 9:45, opening attack on Kennedy. 10 a.m., anticipated Kennedy confusion. The final blow was the behind-the-scenes footage provided by Schiff's own documentary crew. The video showed Schiff rehearsing, his spontaneous reactions in his office at midnight, telling his staff, "Make him look senile. The narrative writes itself." It even captured Schiff in the hallway an hour earlier, telling Netflix on the phone, "The old fool won't know what hit him. We'll have it trending within the hour." Michael Stevens, the documentary director, stood in the gallery and admitted, "He hired me to film everything. I believed him until I saw the contract. He coached me on how to edit footage to make his opponents look stupid. He treated constituents as extras in his show." As the hearing drew to a close, federal agents entered the room. Kennedy produced federal warrants signed by 3 judges for the search of Schiff's offices, his apartment, and his partner's business. The charges included violations of the Foreign Agent Registration Act, the Espionage Act, and money laundering.AOC, who had earlier been a part of the hearing, and other members of the squad immediately distanced themselves. Bernie Sanders called it the darkest day of his political life. Outside the Bronx district office, thousands of constituents gathered to wave American flags and chant, "Traitor." By midnight, the political world was in ruins. Netflix terminated all deals with Schiff. The House Ethics Committee voted unanimously for his expulsion. Schiff, the man who had built a career on manufactured outrage, was photographed in federal detention garb, his famous red lipstick replaced by tears and terror. 6 months later, the trials concluded. The evidence Kennedy had gathered over 3 years, every document authenticated, every recording verified, resulted in a sentence of 25 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. Schiff's fortune, an estimated $200 million derived from criminal activity, was forfeited. Back in Louisiana, John Kennedy was teaching his grandson to tie fishing flies. "How did you know, Grandpa?" the boy asked. Kennedy examined a bit of feather in the light. "Well, son, it's like fishing. You watch the water. You see the ripples that don't quite fit. Most folks see what they expect to see. They saw power. I followed the ripples back to the source. It takes time, but eventually, you find what's making them. And then you catch them," the boy said. Kennedy smiled. "Sometimes, son. And sometimes catching them is the easy part. The hard part is making sure there is still a river left for the honest fish." As the sun set over the bayou, the senior senator sat back against a cypress tree. Fame, he noted, was like morning mist, pretty to look at, but gone by noon. But standing up when it mattered was like the river itself. It kept flowing long after everyone had forgotten your name. Washington was still counting the cost, but on the banks of the Bayou Teche, the truth had finally risen like a flood.